Continue on from the previous lesson or open the file hairsetup05.max. In this lesson we're going to focus on rendering and getting the hair to look a lot cleaner and nicer. This will increase our rendering time, but it will give us a lot nicer result. The parameters that you're interested in for setting the render quality are going to be definitely the hair count, the hair passes, the root thickness, and in render settings, the oversampling. You can see that here the oversampling is set to medium, and if I just bring this down to draft, it won't use basically any anti-aliasing at all. So we'll do a quick render of this. And you can see we get some really jaggy and alias looking hair that is actually very thick at this point. By setting the oversampling up to medium or even high, you get a much better result. Usually I like to keep this on low or medium when working in draft mode, and when going to final you can either go to high or maximum if needed. So because we're going to go to our final render, we'll set this to high. Close that out. Our hair passes we're going to set to 2 is something that I like to use for a medium size, and 3 really gives me the final result that we're looking for. Again, the hair passes are basically almost the number of hairs that are made for each hair that's on the surface, and it makes them finer and more detailed. Another option is we set this root thickness down to 8. With more hair passes we could probably even go a little bit lower down to 5 and even up the hair count some if we wanted to. I'll leave it at 550 right now, and we'll do a render. As you can see, we get a nice fine detailed hair that looks very realistic, and although it took much longer to render, a couple minutes, this is really great for close-ups and where you see the fine detail of the hair. If your character is not full frame with their face or what have you, then it's probably a better idea to lower these settings down to maybe 2 passes with a root thickness of 8, and go back into the render settings and just set the oversampling. You could probably keep it at high or maybe make it medium, which would cut your render time almost in half for this example. Lastly, what we'll do is just go in and try and play with the color a little bit. So we'll scroll down to material parameters, and right now we have a brown or dark beard, and we can just change the tip color to something like white for our gnome, as well as the root color. And we can bring up this occluded ambient value a little bit to maybe 70 to make it a little bit brighter. The values in here as the default values for hue variation, value variation are actually fairly good for hair, and they give you that variation so that it looks more like realistic hair that you would see as opposed to computer generated. You can add maps to any one of these to adjust the color or the variation or things of that nature. So we'll just do a quick render again to see the color change. And you can see we have some nice results with a white beard on our character. And it took almost actually 1/3 of the time as it did at the higher render settings. So we might just want to go and adjust some of these parameters if we were going to see this character this close. At a full frame, a little bit of a distance away, something like that, these settings would be just fine, and you might want to just up them for any close-ups.